Thank you, Miss Sue, Trish, Marilyn, musicians, all that were up here. Folks, it's good to be back in the pulpit here at Concord. And just let me say thank you to your faithfulness in my absence. But, I really had a tremendous time, and hopefully in the very near future, if I can find a way to get some pictures on a disc or whatever I need to do, that I will be bringing a lesson. I wanted to go and see where Paul walked. Somebody asked me, was it a big spiritual experience for you? I said, no, be honest with you. It was kind of a sad experience in so many ways. It was not the same as I went to the Holy Land, I tell you that. But it was a very learning and experience. And I said to some of you, I appreciate my boy Jake, who was willing to take care of his old dad. And Jake truly took care of me. I didn't have to do anything except follow in his footsteps, and man, he led me in a good direction. And so to Brother Glenn Griffith, I love that man. He was my pastor back when I was a teenager here. And I'm glad that he just lives across the street, the road, and can fill in now for us when I'm gone or whatever. But I love Brother Glenn. Miss Nona and Miss Marilyn, and I think Miss Marilyn was sick one of the services, but Miss Nona took care of the piano, and Brother Glenn kind of put her on the spot every now and then. I should have warned Miss Nona about that, but I didn't. But, Brother Glenn's good about doing those things like that, and just calling you up on the spur of the moment. But Miss Nona, thank you for filling in for Trish in her absence. And folks, I just love y'all. I tell you, y'all are special, and thought about y'all many times while I was gone. And it was a very tiring trip. It is a very beneficial trip. Visitors that are here this morning, thank you. Lexa, is that good enough? I appreciate when our kids come home and they bring their friends and they bring them to church. And good to see Gavin here from Tarleton State. Hey, Charlie, how you doing, buddy? It's good to see Charlie back there. Do I have any other of my college kids that have come in? I don't want to overlook any of y'all or any visitors. Thank y'all for your presence. Y'all look to Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11. I appreciate the Sunday school lesson this morning, sitting in under Brother Michael, and he did a tremendous job. But I want us to look in this Hall of Faith passage of Scripture here about someone who, before Joshua, and someone whose name is Moses. And I want to gain some principles that I find in the lives of Amram and Jochebed. Do you know who that couple is? Moses' mom and dad. And what they did, how they prepared Moses. How they prepared Moses. Let me say again, how they prepared Moses for what Moses was going to have to go through in his life. Because I'm here to tell you, parents and church people, you listen to me. Yes, God is in charge of all things. Yes, He's in control of all things. Yes, His power is available to any of us who ask. But I want you to realize He works through people also. Not only through His Spirit, but He works through people. And yes, and those people that He works through are His children. But I want us to realize this morning, faith in the beginning family. What does God expect out of you and I? And as we raise our children and as we do these things, look here in Hebrews chapter 11, start reading with verse 23. And I'm going to center in on that verse 23, but I'm going to read through verse 27. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, a child who had much potential. And they were not afraid of the king's commandment. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith, Moses forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of an earthly king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Let me ask you a question this morning, just to get you thinking. Who do you think is the most important people in the world today? Oh, just a group of people that is some of the most important and most powerful people, who has the most influence of people in our church, our great state, and our great nation, and in the world. I can assure you that the most powerful, earthly, godly influence who makes things happen in the world is God working through parents. Fathers and moms, that they are so important today. Oh, some of you might have been thinking, well, the President of the United States. You might have thought about some chief financial officer, some major company, Amazon or whatever. I was just reading a book this morning about that store across from Tractor Supply, that big store out there on the east. I can't even think of the name now. Anyway, I was reading about the CEO of that great company. And we think, man, those guys are powerful. Those ladies are powerful. Let me tell you something. Some of the most powerful and people who can help our world and change our nation, I want you to realize that it is the godly parents that God has placed here. I want us to look at that this morning. I want us to center in on verse 23. Thought number one, what do parents and grandparents see in their children or grandchildren? What do we see in our children? What do we see in our grandchildren? You say, preacher, why are you putting parents and grandparents together? Because if you go back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, God told we as parents and grandparents to have a tremendous power in their lives, a tremendous influence in their lives. So I ask you, what did Amram and Jochebed see in Moses? Well, look what they said. They saw someone who was a very proper child, someone who they realized was very unique and very special and had tremendous possibilities. Let me say something to you this morning. I don't care who you are. Folks, we need to realize as parents and as grandparents that our children are very important. They are not a burden. God put them in our lives for a reason. So let me ask you a question. Is your children important to you? Folks, if you are a parent and you are listening to me now, I'm telling you that our children that God who has placed in our lives, and not only my family, but my children in this church who God has placed in my life as pastor, are so very, very important. You might ask, well, Preacher Gain, you think we can control the actions of our children when they are babies and then when they grow up and they're gone? Can we control? I'm not stupid enough to say that we can control them, but I can guarantee you right now, if we'll influence them now in the godly trait, that's what I'm talking about. Our influence. What do they see in us as parents and grandparents? What kind of positive influence are we? You know, as I was thinking and going through this sermon the past couple of weeks, I was thinking about my church here. I was thinking about mine and Trisha's life. I was thinking about my boys' lives. And I will tell you something. This church, this community is blessed by a lot of powerful parents and grandparents. And the influence that we give. You know, I want to read Psalms 112 to you. I want you to see something here. In Psalms 112 in verse 1 and 2. If you can't find it in a hurry, hey, just put this scripture down with a pen and paper. Because I want you to listen to this, what David said. Praise ye the Lord. Blessed is the man that feareth the Lord first, and that delighteth greatly in his commandments. And his seed, his children, shall be mighty upon earth. The generation of the upright shall be blessed. Folks, I will tell you something. You listen to me. Folks, why do I encourage so many people to get in church, to get in this book, to have the most powerful Christian friends that they can have? Why do I encourage that? And why do I preach that? Why do I teach that day after day after day with people? Because I'm telling you, God's people, the seed of God's people, are what is making our nation, our state, our community, and our church so powerful today. Folks, how are you influencing your children today? How are you influencing them? You know, I've told this church many, many times, and I met with a young man this past week and talked with him about just some things. Do you know how to spell love when it comes to children? It's spelled T-I-M-E. Folks, we can give them iPads and cell phones and cars and all those worldly material things that are important. I've got a cell phone and I've got a truck, and yes, they're important. But I can guarantee you one thing. What can influence our children, our grandchildren is more, is the quality and quantity of time that we give to them. And I'm here to tell you, Moses' mom and dad, they saw potential. They realized who Moses was and what Moses could do. And they didn't have no idea down the road what was going to happen in his life. But they realized, and they began molding and shaping their child. I never will forget. My brother, James Rodney Richey, talked with me after I surrendered to preach. Now, I surrendered to preach in July of 1977, July the 23rd, Sunday morning, 1977. I remember it just like the day that I got saved. And these folks who want to make fun of people who said, oh, they've been called by God, but just let me tell you something. There is no doubt in my mind that God started impressing my life before July the 23rd, 1977, but that's when I made it known to my church there at Nacogdoches Missionary Baptist. And then a year later, the next best decision that I made was marrying her. And I will never forget when my brother, James, and I was talking, Rodney, were talking. He said, Nolan, you surrendered to preach. I don't know what God has in store for you, whether you will do music or preaching. Because then I wanted to go the music route. I really did. I wanted to go. I'd already had our plans. I had my plans that I was going to Southwestern Theological Seminary and I was going to get my master's in music education and all of that. And then I was going to do music in churches. That's kind of what I wanted to do. But God tweaked that a little bit and called me into the preaching ministry. And Rodney told me, he said, Nolan, you listen to me. He said, what do you think your number one mission field is? Well, Brian, I said, church. He said, no, Nolan. He said, your number one mission field is your family. And you lose your family, and you're headed for heartache. Man. So I took his advice, and listened to my brother, what advice it was. And I was talking to some people this past week and letting them know, as they were pastoring and doing things, that their number one priority, yes, is God, sure. It's their family. It's their family. And yes, the church is so important. God established His church. But parents, I'm telling you something. What do you think of your children? I like what Proverbs 22:6 says. Train up in the way he should go. Do you know what that word way means? It means just like a bent arrow. And you shoot an arrow. And the way is this. There are a lot of ways that our kids can go. Positive ways. I'm not talking about negative ways. I'm talking about train up a child in the way. And I was thinking about that. What is the talents of your children? You that have children right now, I wish I had more of my young people here, young adults with these little children. I was thinking about my three boys. All three of my boys are different, daylight and dark. Their personalities are different. Their talents are different. As I look at Ariel's 3 and John's 3, they're different. Wonderful. You know what we need to do? We need to pick up on the way of our children and see what they like, whether it's in music. I'm not talking getting spiritual here because there's some things. What is the way? What are their talents? Are they good musicians? Are they good builders? Are they good leaders? They have a good mind on them. Do they have good knowledge of different things? And whatever that way is that we see in our children, we need to kind of push them in that direction and then let God work it all out in the end for their lives. But we need to help them out. And ever what their talent is or their way is or the things that we see that, hey, boy, they're good readers or they're good this or they're good that. We need to kind of direct them in that direction and then let God take it on when it's time for Him to reveal for them what they really want. Train up a child in the way. In the way. Train up a child. Bend them to those directions. Parents, what do you see in your children? What ways do you see? What do they love and enjoy? Folks, I'm telling you, even at an early age, we can start seeing things. I saw it in my boys. Parents, what about your children? They're not a burden. If they are, I didn't say they're not going to step on our feet every now and then. But I can tell you for sure, as personal experience, my 3 boys were never a burden to us. Yeah, they get on my nerves. Hey, by the way, folks, my 3 boys still get on my nerves. And by the way, I get on their nerves. How do you spell love to your children and to our grandchildren? Spell it by time. Put time with them. Folks, if you don't put time with them, I guarantee you the world's going to do it. And if you think this world is okay and what's going on in the world today, no, there's none of you think that. All I'm asking, all I'm encouraging you know, Amram and Jochebed, they saw something special in the life of Moses. And they showed Moses in their lives how to live. Point number 2, trust God. He said, and they were not afraid. You know why they were not afraid? They put their trust in God. Parents, if you trust God and you put a godly influence before your children as you serve God, I'm not saying they're not going to stray and sometimes make stupid decisions. But I am saying this, God will bless. You know, I was thinking of my boys. Somebody asked me one time and said, were you ever afraid for what your boys were going to do? And I'm telling you, and I don't know what Tricia did. Well, she and I just really never talked about it. But Rusty, I'm going to tell you something. When my boys left the house, I was never afraid of what they were going to get into. That never bothered me. I don't ever remember a time of being afraid. You know, probably more than her than me. Hey, listen to me, parents. Hey, as best of the knowledge that we could, we kept up with who our friends were, with my boys' friends were. And don't be afraid to find out who their friends are. And say yay or nay. Parents, you hear me? So I was just never afraid. You say, why'd you have so much confidence? Well, it wasn't in my 3 boys, I can tell you that much. We didn't turn our boys loose, let them go. I just believed what this book says, and I trusted God. And I want to tell you folks something. Now, you may not understand this, and you may not realize it, but I'm telling you, when Tricia had Ryan, when Tricia had Jay, when Tricia had Luke, you know what Nolan did? I turned right around in my own private time, and I said, God, these are yours. They're yours. Help me. I I knew my boys would do stupid things. And the older I get, and the older they get, the more some of them stupid things are coming out. But I'm telling you, I was not afraid to let my boys go out into the world. You know why? We kept them in church. We taught them about Jesus. And we lived before them. Hey, young parents. I've got my oldest son right back there. You can verify all this with you. Going to church was not an option. They didn't get up and say, "Are we going to go to church today?" They just got up, got their clothes on, and we went to church. Hey, watch this. Miss Sue, watch this. Sunday morning from 10 to 12, and our other churches, Sunday from 6 to 7, Sunday afternoon. And Wednesday night from 7 to 8. Our boys were at church. All 3 times. Now, I'm a pastor. And I go to a lot of meetings. I go to a lot of revivals. I go to a lot of things. And Tricia would tell you that I didn't drag my boys to all these meetings. The only thing that we went together on every week, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. Parents, if you want a godly influence in your kids, put them around godly people. They're around, and I'm not knocking Pewitt School District or anything else. And our kids that are going off to college right now, Gavin is here right now. And I'm telling you, when they get off to college and they get out of the nest, they're going to be confronted with some things. And I can tell you, parents right now, you that have little ones, it's best to put a godly, what's this statement? Brainwashing in their little minds right now. Because if we don't brainwash them, the world's going to brainwash them. And you may not like that phrase. Well, I'm sorry. I just trust God, and I'm not afraid. And I'm not afraid. And I'm not afraid. So when should it happen? Point number 3. When should we start doing all this? Go back to verse 23 of Hebrews 11. When should it begin? By faith, Moses, when he was born. Now, Miss Marilyn, I used to laugh, and God should have knocked my head off. Marilyn, Miss Sue, Trish, come. I heard James Dobson. A lot of you don't even know who he is. He's a Christian psychologist of yesteryear. And he made the statement that when parents and the mother was carrying the baby in the womb, his belief was that we should read this book and sing Christian songs because that little baby could hear those things. I used to think, oh, yeah, when I was young and dumb and boy, I think I used to, how ridiculous. But may I ask you, who jumped in Elizabeth's womb? And may I ask you, when did God call Jeremiah? And may I ask you, when did Moses feel the calling from God? I'm saying this, parents. We live in a tough, cruel world. But I live in a God who's stronger than anything. You say, preacher, do you ever cry about your kids? Sure. Man, I've cried over many times for my kids. It wasn't because I was worried. My emotions to this day. I had a guy in my office yesterday just broke out in crying. Folks, listen to me. You bet I cry for my boys. I still cry for them. My grandkids. For my church family. I spend a lot of time back there and right here every week wanting the best for y'all. And it will be that way until God moves me from this place right here. Now, I don't do everything to please y'all in the way I do things. That's not here or there. But folks, as long as we keep a good relationship like this down here is going to be taken care of. Parents, grandparents, the greatest thing that can happen in our lives is for this relationship right here to grow in the lives of those babies that God has put us in our lives. Father, I realize what I've said this morning. These folks have heard it from me many a time. God, my heart is heavy because of some things that are going on in this community and some of the people that I've talked with even this week since I've gotten back. And my heart is heavy, hurts. Father, you know the hearts of some of these people in this building right now. They are hurting for some reason. Father, may all of us realize of who you are. Father, I just want you to bless our church. I want these numbers to go back up. Not that I can brag, but that you can get honor and glory. Help us, Father. Help us. May just one person get sold out to you this morning and make a commitment to you. Thank you for loving us. Sure do love this church. Father, I certainly do love you. And thank you for your time of loving me. God's dealing with you this morning. The people are still praying. This altar is open. Miss Sue, what's our number? 305. As we stand and sing number 305, if I can help you in any way, if I can do anything for you, you come this morning. Let's go.